The clip you're about to watch is from the clowns at CNN and their analysis of what just had happened. By the way, they cut the video right when the audience was going to applaud for Bernie. I don't know if that was intended, but it's kind of suspectful.
It cost $30 trillion. Let's get that straight. $30 trillion over 10 years. Some say it cost $20 trillion. Some say it cost 40. The idea that you're going to be able to save that person making $60,000 a year on Medicare for all is absolutely preposterous. 16% of the American public is on Medicare now, and everybody has a tax taken out of their paycheck now. Tell me, you're going to add 84% more, and there's not going to be higher taxes? At least before he was honest about it.
Oh, Joe.
It's going to increase personal taxes. They're going to be...
That's right. We are going to increase personal taxes.
Okay.
But we're eliminating premiums. We're eliminating co-payments. We're eliminating deductibles. We're eliminating all out-of-pocket expenses. And no family in America will spend more than $200 a year on prescription drugs.
That moment with Bernie Sanders was not just, telling him, let me interrupt. It was on the substance of one of the most important questions, which is, how are you going to pay for everything? And is it realistic? Which is the kind of argument that Senator Klobuchar makes, that Pete Buttigieg makes in the very big divide, the philosophical divide that is this field.
Right.
And he did it more clearly, with more strength, in a more cogent way in that moment with Bernie than I've ever heard.
Well, two things. First of all, it should be known that Amy Klobuchar is getting a lot more attention from the media than I've seen in debates past. And she's not the only candidate in the room right now. So obviously her performance tonight is resonating. Two, Axe, I asked this question for a reason. I'm not to disrespect Democrats with comparing badminton to a man with a stick, but you're not having this debate with the President of the United States. It's not going to go this way. And at some point, I know you have to impress in party, but you have to start seeing the kinds of things that will allow you to win on that stage.
Let me assure you this. You have a lot of smart people around these candidates. They do a lot of research, and they really probe to see what kinds of messages are going to resonate with voters. And if they thought that the way forward here to distinguish themselves was to go sort of scorched earth against the president, they would have done it. I mean, I think they're reading the electorate, and I think that it is baked in the cake that Democrats deeply, deeply dislike Donald Trump and want to beat him. And so, but they need to distinguish themselves from each other. Each of them will claim to be
and have a message that touches a little bit of the disaffection that dismisses everything he does because they are worried about something bigger than his behavior.
Yes.
You got to touch that.
Oh, no, you do.
Well, they did, but they all did at the beginning when they were talking about impeachment, and they were given an opportunity to do that and to essentially get it out of the way before they started discussing their differences with each other. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but they wanted to, get that out of the way, discuss and then go into their differences. I just wanted to, if you want to add to that, that's fine. I just want to switch to Bernie Sanders. So
before you do, because we should do that. But the thing about Joe Biden, and the reason why there is a sense that maybe he could be the guy who beats Trump, and the reason Trump obviously feels that way because he bought an impeachment trying to retard Biden's progress, is that he is culturally akin to many of these disaffected voters you're turning about. He's an establishment figure, but culturally, he comes from a different place, and he can speak to those voters in the idioms
And he's talking about spending less money.
Right.
I mean, I know we all hear it all the time. Everything
Sanders.
costs money that you're hearing from these Democrats. Is that what's going to resonate with people who feel that they're giving too much already?
He talks about the dignity of these.
Absolutely, he does.
And I think a lot of Democrats are insensitive to the sense of estrangement that these and disdain that these voters feel.
Look.
But
and the
Bernie
pivot on that is Bernie Sanders had been that candidate up until about 3 months ago, where he gets the anger.
And he
gets the disaffection.
And he still does. But the Medicare for All, which has become the talking point of every moderate, which is you can't pay for it. How are you going to pay for it? I still think is a real problem for him. One thing I want to say about Bernie Sanders tonight, who always, by the way, shows up and he's Bernie Sanders, He is
He's done pretty
the
well with
person
that.
you expect him to be. But we learned more about Bernie Sanders tonight. It was like his autobiography. He announced that he was Jewish, which
Proudly Jewish.
proudly Jewish.
I've
that
never
he
heard him
lived
say
in
that
Israel.
before.
That he
Well,
lived in Israel
in
before
service
he
of
said.
making a point about.
Well, before he said you must be pro-Palestinian as well.
Which is good.
But this was Bernie Sanders. I sat there and I thought, wow, Bernie Sanders offering
I think we never talk about Bernie Sanders. He is actually doing pretty well in this polling. He's actually picked up. And the fact is, Bernie Sanders is as consistent
Exactly.
as consistent can be. You know what he's going to say. I always say it's like a Billy Joel concert. You know, you hear the hits from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. Everybody knows the words and they sing along, but they love it and they come and he's got a
and
very
that's comforting.
devoted
And
following.
that's
I don't think I've seen a video with so much bullshit in it, honestly. All right, for starters, Amy Klobuchar, the imagination of this idea literally came from corporate media. You know, it wasn't how it's supposed to be. Like, ideas in the political world should be brought up by the constituents, by the people, by a majority of them, which they bring upon by some kind of social act. But this idea that she can actually be a real contender came from corporate media. That was the center, the beginning of it. You know, you could just see it with Bill Maher's descent into centrism, how he supported her too. And it's just not going to happen. They just keep trying to push it in our faces, but it's just not going to happen. You know? It just ain't. It's probably a waste of their time, but, you know, they're stupid, so they'll keep trying. And the guy all the way to the right, his name's Axelrod, and there's this amazing video of Bernie just owning him when he was trying to lie about Bernie's surge in the polls. So, and then he was saying a bunch of wrong shit, too. I mean, one of the things that I caught him saying is that these Democrats, these presidential candidates have a lot of smart people around him that will guide him to what idea or to what subject they should try to push. You know, this just goes to fucking show you. Most politicians, that's why Bernie's such a refreshing person to see up there. Most of the candidates have their little consultants, you know, that tell them, oh, this is what you should do. If you really watch Pete Buttigieg, he's like a fucking robot that's trying to figure out an algorithm while he talks, you know, just a bunch of, if you actually read into politics, oh my God, it's just a bunch of bullshit after bullshit after bullshit, you know. Other centrist moderates like Biden or Klobuchar, they say a bunch of bullshit, but, you know, once in a while there's something that makes sense. There's some dignity, you know, there's some value in what they're saying. But Pete, fuck, really just, there's nothing. It's just nothing, just a corporate hack. And, okay, same thing with Axelrod, another stupid thing he said. He said Biden comes from, we can appeal to Biden on a cultural way. You know, yeah, we can appeal to him because he passed the crime bill that led to massive incarceration, mostly of African Americans, and to a bankruptcy bill that just said fuck students, his vote for the Iraq War, and his Wall Street deregulation that probably played a part in 2008, just like many other corporate Democrats. So, you know, and that's the thing really about the two-party system we have now, is that before, people say they started around the 1980s, but before, you know, the Democrats were for the working class and all of that. They were. And what we have now is the Republicans who's just gone bad shit, and we have Democrats, because everything moved to the right in the 1980s. So the Democrats are now the right, maybe, you know, maybe the center, but they try to, you know, grab the support of the people by throwing them left social issues, which are important. You know, that's one of the reasons we were even able to win that Supreme Court for gay marriage, because we had a lot of Democratic support there. But while they do that, they're left, you know, in cultural, social issues. They're fucking centered in economic issues, you know? You know, that we could be good, have our more rights, you know, all of that. But if we're fucking dead in the mud economically, I mean, come on. It's literally all the operations that run our jobs and all the financial systems and everything, you know? And they're right in the fucking center, sometimes they're not right on that. How does that make, you know? That's why Bernie's pushing them to the left, where we need to be, instead of that we tried this since the 1980s, increasing inequality, where the first generation be in risk of having a lower standard of living than our parents. I mean, come on, it hasn't worked. And oh my god! And another thing by Axelrod, and this was just just bad, when they were mentioning Bernie, what he said about Israel, and then while they were saying that, Axelrod was trying to interrupt, saying, well, and then it was revealed what he was going to say. Well, he did talk about Palestinians, though. Like, what the fuck? I mean, yeah, fuck them, huh? Not even people, not even worth a mention. You know, it makes it bad that Bernie mentioned his Jewish religion. No? Nah. And all right, I'll give him some credit. He did mention that Bernie was consistent, and that's always a good thing. So, yeah. But overall, just corporate hackness thrown at everybody's face right after the debate. So you can't watch that shit. Don't watch corporate media. Turn it off and watch something else.